Alright, so today we're gonna look at this.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory.
We already looked at MatPat's first Paw theory, so maybe check that out first if you haven't seen it yet. Same disclaimer here, MatPat's videos are fun and intentionally make big logical leaps to reach silly clickbait conclusions, and that's totally fine. He was having fun and we're gonna be having fun here too, taking what he says seriously and picking it apart. But it comes from a place of love for YouTube's original theater kid Unk.
Last time I covered Paw Patrol, I convinced you that this kid, Ryder, child genius inventor, was recruiting homeless dogs to use as members of his crew of rescue animals, the Paw Patrol.
Well, you didn't really convince anyone of that, Matt. That's just the premise of the show. Rescue dogs who rescue people. Also, I hate movie pup renders with show Ryder. And how enormous Rubble is.
Why? Well, because the missions are dangerous, dogs are cheaper and more expendable than humans, and stray dogs are the most expendable of all.
Yeah, you just kinda said that, taking it for granted that it's the same in their world as it is in ours. But given they're sapient talking animals, unlike in our universe, it's a big jump to claim they definitely have the same legal status as dogs do for us. And it's undeniably a different ethical situation, so this was not a point well argued.
Now, obviously what Ryder's doing there is real bad, but the crimes of Ryder don't just stop there, my friends. Not only is he putting his dogs into the direct line of danger with little regard to their well-being, he's the one creating those dangerous situations in the first place. Get ready, all you good pups, because today we're exposing Ryder for the money-hungry criminal mastermind that he really is.
So that's the hook for this second video. Basically, it just doubles down on the premise of the first, but with a little extra narrative informed by a million corrupt arms dealer storylines. As always though, there's a nice level of production to the distinctive theorist slideshow style. Someone's using a ripped game model of Ryder here. I presume it got cleared by legal.
They're all dead, pups. And they'll be replaced. 'Cause it's just another day around Adventure Bay. Dead Patrol.
MatPat can definitely sing. He's that kind of theater kid. I'm guessing that sounded like it did mostly because he just sang it a cappella and they made a vague stab at matching his key with the oompa backing. Now, he didn't actually reiterate this argument, but it was his fun but very poorly supported thesis statement from that first video. It relied not only on accepting that idea that dogs with human intelligence would still be disposable in a universe where they exist, we just talked about, but required you to pretend retirement was an impossible hypothetical for dogs, except the deceased would never ever be spoken of, and relied on signs of use on Rubble's gear that could be explained by something like testing or repurposing materials. But that's all covered in the video that looked at that first theory.
Zuma for water rescue, and Rocky for garbage collection.
Again with this reductive line. It makes me think he's just nowhere near as familiar with the show as he claims, since by the time this was made, Rocky had gone through his period of being an insanely OP recycling pup whose truck basically did Full Metal Alchemist magical transmutations.
Lots and lots of winches to make...
He used this gag in the first theory as well, so I'll repeat the response. That's a joke that would only be made by someone whose exposure to the show is really limited to the first 3 seasons. The winch is a nostalgic hit these days, with how seldom it's been used this past decade. For reference, this theory video came out in late 2022, well into season 9. The winch hadn't been frequently used since honestly before MatPat's son was born. But of course, reruns and streaming are a thing. Still, he makes a crack right after this about how later seasons get weird, so the winch gag just seems, well, very casual viewer-ish. Which is fine, obviously. It's just not his brand.
Pups with fishtails?
It must be MatPat's!
Whoa. Out of nowhere, UK redub. Why? In fairness, this doesn't mean this is how MatPat watched it. He just had a note for his team, insert clip about merpups, and they will have pulled this from the Nick UK YouTube, blissfully unaware it's a redub.
In our last theory, we concluded that there were pups in the Paw Patrol before the main 6 of the series. Pups who died in the line of duty before being callously replaced.
I mean, that was your conclusion, yes, but only because you sneakily ignored all kinds of logical explanations like retirement, alternate explanations for your evidence this happened, and a setting that would have a different legal framework precluding it. But once again, MatPat knows very well all the pups are dead, gets clicks where possibly another construction pup had a trial run, decided she didn't like it, and went home, gets none. Just like, Toby Fox sure does like the Mother games and puts in little visual references to them here and there, doesn't get nearly the impact of, Sans is Ness.
But the technology that they use sure looks an awful lot like the stuff that Ryder builds for the Paw Patrol. And that's because Ryder is doing much worse than just taking advantage of disasters and putting innocent pups in danger to make a quick buck. As the series goes on, it seems like Ryder is the one creating the dangerous scenarios that are putting everyone at risk.
So this is the crux of the theory, that Ryder is supplying the bad guys with the means to cause problems. It really does not stand up to scrutiny at all, but let's deal with the specifics as he lays them out.
Putting both his dogs and his town at risk, all while he literally sits atop his ivory tower, the Lookout.
Okay, so something's going ignored here, so it's best to address it now. And it's not the kind of weird use of ivory tower, which is generally used for detached observers like academics. Ryder goes out on very nearly every mission himself. But also earlier, MatPat says the money from this scheme comes from the merchandise of the pups, which in the first theory he derived from the relevant scene in movie 1. But he never addresses how that's totally incompatible with his idea of expendable pups who keep dying. You can't make merch with cute pups' faces all over it and build personal brands around them, and also have them keep getting killed off. These contradictory ideas are never juxtaposed or dealt with.
Here's the weird thing about the Catastrophe crew. Each kitten directly maps onto a Paw Patrol member. Isn't Humdinger just super tech savvy? Couldn't he have just replicated Ryder's technology rather than it being given to him?
Yeah, so the onus is now on MatPat to show that it is only possible for the tech on this show to be provided by Ryder. He has to demonstrate that Humdinger can't make things himself, and also that he can't source the tech from anyone but Ryder. Spoiler, he totally fails to do this.
Humdinger ain't exactly what you'd call a tech whiz. In Season 5, Episode 17, Pups Save the Movie Monster, Humdinger tries to steal a robot monster but just doesn't understand its controls.
Oh, this remote looks complicated.
Well, that's not evidence he can't build or source tech like Ryder's.
In the Paw Patrol movie, his complete ignorance of technology is what causes the cloud catcher to malfunction and destroy Adventure City.
Well, that's a stretch. It's not ignorance of the technology that means he puts too much strain on the cloud catcher. It's arrant indifference and the pompous belief he can just make sure others will do his bidding effectively. It also shows others are making advanced technology aside from Ryder that Humdinger could, buy from.
Mayor Humdinger does try to create several inventions throughout his appearances in the series, and they're just awful in comparison to the stuff that we see Ryder make.
Firstly, MatPat is slyly shifting the goalposts here. The premise wasn't Humdinger can't make things as well as Ryder. What needed to be demonstrated was that he's incapable of making or buying the tech he uses, including the kitten's gear. I'm a little surprised MatPat does go on to mention Meow Meow here, because that thing is incredibly advanced.
I don't know about you, but a remote-controlled soccer ball seems just a little bit less complicated than a voice-controlled cat pack with a freely rotating, fully operational robot arm.
Well, not particularly. A soccer ball with rocket, tech, fuel, and a telescoping exhaust with radio technology that's still light enough nobody notices it's not a regular ball is also in the magical tech sphere. Whereas you can call this a simple clamp on a motorized arm with a standardized control circuit he could have bought. You're just priming and framing things in a lopsided way.
Humdinger creates a robot cat to win yet another competition, but when it trips and falls onto the floor, it goes haywire.
Yep, MatPat completely loses me here. He tries to gloss over it, but even if it's fragile, being able to build Meow Meow at all shows technological prowess vastly in advance of what's needed to create anything else on the show. This is a realistically proportioned, absurdly dexterous lightweight cat robot with an incredible finish, and beyond being unable to take this fall, is one of the most impressive pieces of tech on the entire show. He's trying to make us look away quick, but MatPat undermines his entire point here. It broke easily. So what? It still demonstrates absurd engineering skill, or a world where parts to make this thing are freely available.
It only makes sense if Ryder was the one who created all of the tech.
What? No? You just jumped there out of nowhere. Humdinger makes tech that often breaks, so someone else must have made the kitten kit. Ergo, it was Ryder? What? Do you think no other engineers exist in this world? By this point, we've seen Gasket and Mr. Wingnut making some crazy contraptions. The Duke of Flappington has an enormous eagle jet. Then there's Claw and Sweetie, but he's about to get to that. It hasn't happened yet from MatPat's perspective, but a few weeks after this, Moby makes his outfit and vehicle with tech every bit as good as Ryder's from junk on an island. Then we get Cody Gizmody and Roboco, who made Digi and Tao. I can accept the angle that since it doesn't break a lot, maybe it's less likely Mayor Humdinger made the kitten's tech, but the jump from there to therefore it can only have been Ryder is ridiculous. By far the most likely explanation is that this world has incredibly advanced standardized parts that can easily be used to make some incredible things. Some, like Moby and Ryder, are amazing at this, while others are a lot more slapdash. And MatPat does cover this in a bit. Also, it's annoying me that this background has paws with 4 toes, when Ryder's badge shows 3, which is what the world's inhabitants actually have. And it's right there.
When the Paw Patrol face off with this guy, he already has his own personal pup pack with a claw that can grab things.
MatPat is contradicting himself here, but leaving out the information that makes that blatant. He just dismissed the possibility that Humdinger was making his own tech since it goes wrong so much. But now he's going to suggest Ryder made Claw's kit, even though the defining quality of it is that it goes wrong all the time. A direct, logical contradiction. Also, Claw's gear is just aesthetically totally different from the other pups. Way more angled, with sharp edges and chrome. Not at all Ryder's style, except when he's trying to fit in with local designs in Rescue Nights. Yes, Claw mysteriously has a collar that for some reason looks like a Paw Patrol badge, but again, the more likely explanation is that the world just has standardized parts. And again, Moby making his own kit a few episodes later would totally throw a wrench into this whole theory, but we have to be charitable and accept it wasn't available info for MatPat at the time.
Then, in the Mission Paw series, we meet Sweetie.
For fans, that's another big tell that Mr. Patrick hasn't actually watched the show he's talking about in depth. The great big then on screen when, of course, Sweetie appeared 4 years before Claw did. And not only is that the case, she was in the episode where Claw was introduced.
When Sweetie suits up, her attire matches the aesthetics of the Mission Paw outfits that the Paw Patrol is wearing.
I question that. Like, they have collars and there are lines, but they're pretty different. The pups have this glowing neon Tron thing going on, while Sweetie's outfit is the spy movie femme fatale catsuit trope. That said, it's a little more likely that Ryder supplies Sweetie's kit since the princess is a fan. But there's no strong evidence for it, and even if that's true, it really doesn't mean he's supplied any other villain.
They have to have been made by the same person.
That is definitely not the case just based on the aesthetic of them. Designers with common influences and standardized parts makes more sense, to the extent they're even similar, which, again, I contend they're not very.
But okay, maybe this sort of technology is just super common in the Paw Patrol universe.
Okay, good. Glad that's been raised.
Maybe pup packs are something that you could just order from your local Best Buy. But again, that's not the case. As we called out in our last theory, the Paw Patrol are relative unknowns in this world.
Okay, so he uses a point that isn't well substantiated that, even if it is true, wouldn't even prove his point. First, yes, Gus the driver is unfamiliar with the Paw Patrol. He uses that to do heavy lifting as evidence that they're not well known. But that ignores that Liberty knows them well and fangirls just to talk to them in the same movie, and leaves out that the Princess of Barkingburg, royalty in a foreign sovereign state, is also a fan. It also contradicts your entire premise about Ryder being this evil mastermind making money from selling merch, given a little-known group doesn't get to sell a lot of t-shirts. Plus, even if we accept the idea, it doesn't matter, because it's not about whether people can buy exact copies of what the pups have. You did not demonstrate that that's what Sweetie and Claw have, let alone all villains. And we only need a world of standardized parts lending themselves to similar general looks to what Ryder makes, being common and widely available. In fact, lots of characters with little connection to Ryder having such similar gear is strong evidence of this, and it becomes pretty undeniable with Moby a few episodes down the line from here. Very weak argumentation.
Maybe that's just how technology looks in this universe. That would be a fantastic explanation for what we're seeing here.
Okay, good. Again, he is cognizant of the problems with this line of thinking, even though I think anything he has to say here won't stand up to Moby, or even Cody's extremely similar tech coming up, let alone Roxy and Boomer.
He already pointed out how different and almost primitive Humdinger's tech looks compared to Ryder's.
No. At best you provided some evidence of that for some of his tech, and you're using circular logic to say things that do look like Ryder's tech, like the kitten's gear, can't be evidence of Humdinger being able to make very similar things. But I also think that collar tag shape aside, Claw's gear looks at least this different to Ryder's creations, while the Rough Pack's is about as similar, while being clearly not made by Ryder. And again, Moby's gonna come along in a few episodes and totally bust all this by just making his own gear in a very similar style to Ryder's creations, out of scraps. We'll address the Rough Pack next, but just think about what he's saying here that doesn't apply to Claw, despite him having just expressed how his kit just looks so much like what Ryder made for the Paw Patrol.
Their packs are way different from the ones that we know that Ryder makes. Every pack that we've seen up to this point looks very similar. They're made with clean, cylindrical, or cuboidal pieces, and their joints are easy to move. Plus, they're all colored and feature iconography that matches the pup or kitten that they were made for.
Where, MatPat? Show me where.
The Catastrophe Crew? Sweetie, there's no other way to explain it. It had to have come from Ryder.
No, this is pretty dishonest, MatPat. You left Claw out pretty obviously there. Sweetie, I can give you as a maybe, but Humdinger could have just made the kitten stuff in direct imitation of Ryder's and taken more care to make it robust. Meow Meow shows things he makes can be extremely different looking from that shark sub, and even if we've accepted every word you've said here, that still doesn't rule out third parties making these things. Who says Humdinger couldn't have commissioned the kit from other engineers? They can be better at this than Gasket is, and the princess could have done the same. You can't just limit the creators to who we've seen on screen arbitrarily. And yet again, Moby's right around the corner to totally explode this idea.
Season 1, we never see Humdinger do anything shady or illegal. He's just a really competitive guy from a nearby city.
He makes way too much of this. Humdinger is only in Season 1 twice with a speaking role. And while the idea that Ryder subtly manipulates him into using tech to get ahead is a fun one, it's a logical leap with no actual supporting evidence. As is the intended corollary that Ryder will make more money doing this. MatPat has his cake and eats it by both relying on the patrol not being well known to make one point, while positing that they've become very high profile to make another.
Just like that, Ryder has suddenly made himself a valuable new client for life in the Princess of Barkingburg.
So, because he provided tech to Sweetie and Claw, he raises his profile enough to get the gig that involves providing tech to Sweetie and Claw, huh? He adds for life because he sees how weak this line of thinking is. But he's putting the cart before the horse, as well as ignoring how Claw's gear often fails, looks totally different from the pup's, and, given his lack of means, has very likely been in Claw's possession since long before he met Ryder.
In his greed, Ryder encourages these misguided souls to cheat and commit crimes in order to drive up business for himself.
This is a really weird victim-blaming take. Don't blame the thief, blame the one who manufactured the crowbar. Guess the people who developed the internet just slyly facilitated all the illegal activity that happens online, huh? Honestly, wild take if you sit back and think about what he's saying here.
The true villain of this franchise, sitting pretty atop his Scrooge McDuckian pile of cash, while he puts the lives of both his pups and innocent people on the line.
Okay, I guess he's just not going to explain how this leads to huge piles of money, especially with the insane overheads. So that's the theory. Again, MatPat isn't serious about any of this stuff, and he's just making entertainment here, which is absolutely fine, and he succeeds super well with the clickbaiting. This response is meant to be fun as well. It comes from a place of affection, and it's just enjoyable and silly to analyze this stuff as if it's meant to be serious. Hope that makes sense. If you'd like to see my response to his first theory video, why not click here? Or, for some reason I feel like my Evangelion fan animation is appropriate to link here, so if you want to see that, click here. That's all for today though, and I'll see you guys again next time.